Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of Senate Bill 1073. Mr. Speaker, one of the ways in which we try to judge whether or not to support each budget proposal is based on how it will impact those who cannot advocate for themselves. Specifically, I look at line items that fund programs that help those who depend on us for their very survival. While the budget before us is far from perfect, it is a very positive effort in the manner it funds our brothers and sisters who have intellectual disabilities and autism, and also in the way it supports Pennsylvania families who deal with Tourette's syndrome. I'd like to focus on these two items briefly. In the area of funding for intellectual disabilities and autism, I'm pleased to say that the budget before us this evening increases funding in this critically important area. It increases funding for waivers for adults with special needs by over $80 million. This will translate into funding that will support 700 recent high school graduates who have already been working hard trying to get ready for when they will leave our public school system. These young men and women have been trained in life skills as well as in their academic areas and are ready to work, ready to pay taxes, and ready to fully participate in society as they have the right to do. The funding in this budget will assist them. This funding also includes resources to take 200 adults with special needs or autism off the waiting list for services. Mr. Speaker, these men and women are the ones who may be 60 or 65 years old and live with parents who may be in their 90s and who are struggling with their own age and health-related problems. Many of the families who care for an adult child with special needs have done so for many years while they patiently waited for their turn to obtain the desperately needed services they require to properly care for their family member. Every legislator in this chamber has constituents who are in this position. We need to continue to help these families, and this budget accomplishes this objective. Mr. Speaker, one other aspect of this budget that deserves mention is the continued funding that has been given to the mission of working with those who suffer from Tourette's syndrome. This funding provides critical services to Pennsylvanians who suffer from Tourette's and their families. We've maintained this critical funding that will support the needs of individuals with Tourette's across the Commonwealth. Mr. Speaker, many parents who care for a child with Tourette's cannot afford an advocate or legal counsel and badly need this assistance in navigating the complicated IEP process. This funding will assist these families, work with their school districts, and to make recommendations for the supports that will help these students to be successful in school. Mr. Speaker, many of these families have absolutely no other place to turn as they fight for services and supports for their child. They desperately need this funding. While the budget is far from perfect, it faces our economic reality and still helps those who cannot help themselves. That is one litmus test and one of the reasons why I believe it deserves our support. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.